All right, here we are on the next page of the notes. You should recognize these properties from Algebra 1. I'm just going to quickly review a couple of them with you just to help refresh your memory on them. The first one we've got here is the commutative property, and hopefully what you remember from Algebra 1 is this. The commutative property applies to addition and multiplication. Subtraction and division are not commutative, and here's what that means. A commutative property is all about the order in which you add or multiply. And what the commutative property tells us is that when it comes to addition and multiplication, order doesn't matter. You can add the numbers in any order you want to. You can multiply the numbers in any order you want to. You're going to get the same answer. 3 times 5 is the same as 5 times 3. Just a quick mental exercise here though. Please notice commutative property does not, like I already said, does not apply to subtraction and division. 5 minus 3 is not the same as 3 minus 5. Likewise, 5 divided by 3 is not the same as 3 divided by 5. So the commutative property says order doesn't matter, but it only applies to addition and multiplication. We'll use this property quite a bit in this Algebra 2 class, just like you did in Algebra 1. The next one is the associative property, and hopefully what you remember from Algebra 1 with the associative property is this. The associative property says that for addition and multiplication, grouping does not matter. Apologize, I'm going to run into my chart here a little bit, but grouping does not matter. When it comes to parentheses, brackets, and braces, for addition and multiplication, you can essentially ignore them, all right? They don't matter. You can group any numbers you want to together in addition and multiplication. It's not going to change your answer. However, again, like you were warned in Algebra 1, the associative property does not apply to subtraction and division. Grouping matters when doing subtraction and division. So this is only addition and multiplication. We are going to talk a lot more about the identity and the inverse property on the next page when we do some example problems. So I'm actually going to hold off on those, a better description of those until then. I'll say about them for now. Of course, the identity property for addition is very easy. If you have a number and you add 0, you're going to get the same number back. 3 plus 0 is 3, right? So that is the identity property for addition. You can add 0 to any number. It doesn't change the number. Same for multiplication, except this time instead of 0, you're just going to be using 1. 3 times 1 is still 3. You can multiply any number by 1. It will not change the number. So that's the identity property. Should be pretty straightforward. I don't think you'll have any trouble with that one. The inverse. What we're looking for on the inverse property is simply this. You're going to be given a number, some number. In this case, they'd say some number A. We'll do an example with actual numbers on the next page of the notes. But you're given some number A. All they want to know is what do you need to add to the number you were given in order to get 0. For example, if I give you the number 3, what is the additive inverse of a positive 3? Well, in order to get 0, you'd have to add a negative 3. 3 plus a negative 3 is 0. Negative 3 is your additive inverse. That's all we're going to be doing with this property. And again, if that seems a little confusing, just hold on. There's a couple of example problems on the next page. We'll work through them there. Multiplication for the inverse property works the exact same way. You're going to be given a number. Let's keep 3. We'll keep the number 3. What you're looking to do is find a number that when you multiply by this number, whatever it is, you're going to get 1. Well, if we take our example, which is 3, what number do I need to multiply 3 by so that I get a 1? Well, I need the 3's to cancel, so I'm going to multiply by 1/3. Again, if you're having trouble visualizing that, don't worry. We will do a couple of example problems and it should make more sense there. Right now, though, I just want to jump down here to the distributive property. You should remember this distributive property from Algebra 1. You would have used it a lot. We're going to use it a lot in here as well. And the distributive property just simply says this. Whenever you have something in front of a grouping symbol, multiply. That whatever it is, that number, that variable, whatever it is, through the grouping symbol. Please do not forget, if it's a negative number out front, everything gets distributed. You need to take that minus sign as well as the number or the variable through your grouping symbol. All right, distributive property. We'll do a couple of examples of that. Before we move on to that stuff, though, a couple of things I'd like to point out to you here because they are going to show up a little bit later. The division property of 0. There's a big difference here, and I just want to point it out. You should be okay with this, but it doesn't hurt to be reminded of it. You can divide 0 by anything. 0 divided by any number, we're good, no problem. It's going to be equal to 0. Where we run into a problem is when you take any number, pick any number you want to, and divide by 0. That is not equal to 0. What we call this is undefined, all right? You're not allowed to divide by 0. We're going to call it undefined, and this is going to play a role a little bit later on when we get to rational expressions. Whenever you have an expression that is written as a fraction with a numerator and a denominator, the denominator, the bottom part of the fraction, cannot be 0. We'll take a look at a couple of example problems a little bit later on in this note set. You'll see exactly what I mean. We just have to watch out for that. You can't have 0 in the denominator. It's undefined. 0 in the top, no problem. Easy peasy, it's going to be equal to 0. So when you have a 0 in the bottom, that's not okay. And then down here, you should be perfectly fine with the division property of 1, but just highlight it here for you real quick. Any number you can multiply. You can divide any number by 1, you're going to get that number back. So division by 1, no problem, we should be okay. Also keep in mind that anytime you divide a number by itself, you're going to get 1. So that's our division property of 1. That takes care of all the properties on this page of the notes. Head on over to the next page. We'll work on some example problems, and I'll see you there.